Welcome to Grace Pilled, where we explore the infinitude of God by talking about God, within God, aka interviews with people spanning the vastness of the spiritual path. My name is Hanna, and I'm going to be your guide. I've been studying and practicing in a classical Shakta tantric tradition since 2015, and I just love exploring all of the ways that God wakes up within her own dream through the guise of individual people on this earth. For the last few years, I've been working professionally as a guide for other people, doing one-on-one work, and also giving talks and courses. If you ever want to chat with me, you can book a call with me on my website or join my Patreon, which is my massive library of talks that I've given over the years. So today is going to be a little bit different. We've got something different going on. You can probably see from the title of this podcast. Today's a YAPCAST, okay? And I'm going to be peppering in these YAPCasts into this first season just to kind of break up the rhythm to kind of shake everything up. And so here's what to expect from a YAPcast. It's always going to be a casual but intentional conversation between me and my best friend, Monica. And we're just going to be talking about whatever we want to talk about. And so today we're talking about the idea of the inner child for almost 2 hours. So get ready for that. But first, I think you need to know a little bit more about Monica. Monica. So, how can I explain Monica? She's like if an artist, poet, and visionary thinker had the integrity of a saint. She is funny, she's witty, she is deeply, deeply curious and compassionate. And in fact, I would say that she's 10 times more curious and compassionate than me. Another thing to know about Monica is that she and I are basically the same person. I'm not exaggerating. We are basically the same person. If you're a human design nerd, we're both splenic projectors with the channel of struggle and wide, gaping open solar plexuses. We both have a lot of openness in our charts, but Monica even more than me. I've got the defined head center and ajna, but we've both got the defined root and spleen. So when we're together, the mental energy between us absolutely pops off because she inspires me with her open head, and then I ground her thinking. In addition to this, I'm annoyingly individual in my circuitry, but she's got some tribal circuitry going on big time. So together, when we're able to look with openness and vastness at the human experience, we are able to kind of cover all the bases of basically any topic, because she keeps us grounded in the physical reality of the needs of people and really what's going on this tribal level. And I've got this individual circuitry and the collective stuff going on where there's the big picture. And so she keeps us grounded for sure. She keeps the whole realm grounded, arguably. So to say the least, it's a blessing to be her friend because I don't have to explain myself at all to her because we are so similar. I have never had a friendship like this before. I don't have to explain anything. She just gets me because we're the same person. We are mechanically built very similarly. And our birthdays are less than a month apart, same year. So we kind of end up going through the same shit at the same time. It's shocking. I got into a relationship with a man with a 9-year-old daughter, and then she got into a relationship with a man with a 9-year-old daughter. It's stuff like that, and it's okay, I guess we're just both testing out these different experiences in consciousness, and we just have someone who gets it. Never had that with anyone in my life. So Monica is a blessing to me, and I hope that she will bless you as you get to know her over the course of our conversations. And you're going to hear about her a lot more, actually, because in June, we are teaching a 4-week course about interpersonal conflict. And of course we are, because conflict is completely Monica's bag. So Monica and I are the same person. Okay, this is going to be hilarious for you guys to hear and maybe even check out if that's true. But I don't want to minimize her, okay, by talking about our similarities because she is her own individual differentiated being. And so who's Monica? She's a multimedia artist, a writer, a grief and conflict mentor actively. That's what her job is. And she's also a somatic teacher. She helps people make sense of life's messiest moments. She roots everything she does in her college-level peace education, her emphasis on transformative conflict, and restorative justice at every level of society. She brings emotional depth and practicality into her world, thus helping people to communicate better, to mend what's been broken, and to move through change with intention. She's a coach and founder of Rooted Relating, and also the voice behind Salt and Quill, where she explores the alchemy of healing, storytelling, and self-expression. She is quite literally known as a sense maker, a poet in motion, and the one who will gently but firmly encourage you to run straight towards the hard shit. So, of course, we're in good company, right? Now, here's some context for this conversation that's going to be really interesting if you stick around with this podcast. We recorded this conversation about the inner child late 2024, just weeks before Monica broke her leg, like violently broke her leg. And that has been a wildly painful and wildly transformative experience for her. So, that channel of struggle just will not let up. So our next YAPCAST is actually going to be all about her broken leg. What's it been like to not be able to walk for months and months at a time? What's it like to be pinned down and not be able to do anything, I know there's a lot of listeners of my podcast, but also my work in general, who have struggled with chronic pain, chronic injury. And to, highlight so many other things about Monica and mine's similarities is that I've got chronic illness, chronic pain, Crohn's disease. Monica has had Hashimoto's disease. And so there's a lot of body struggles that we've both experienced. And this broken leg thing has just been an absolute initiation into what do you do when literally nothing is going your way. So it's interesting to hear her speaking in this inner child conversation on the cusp of such a major life shift. And we'll hear more about that life shift during the next YAPcast. And so let's get right into it. I should shut the hell up so that we can begin yapping about the idea of the inner child. All right, let's do it. 3, 2, 1. Oh my God!
Hello!
Wow! Here we are!
Here.
Hi, Monica.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I was going to say something I didn't ask you.
What is it?
How are you doing?
I'm doing really good.
Good.
I'm doing really good. On that note, I'm really trying to honor my cycle as a menstruating person. And I'm realizing that a lot of my suffering happens because I try to force myself to do things in the wrong phase of my cycle. Speaking of, projector core, I feel like as a projector, you're a projector as well.
Yes.
That's the stuff that we have to pay even more attention to probably than other people.
Yes.
So I'm doing really good because right now I'm in the phase where I feel good. And I'm getting shit done because this is the phase when I get shit done. And then I need to honor the cave that happens in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I love the cave, and I also love the coming out of the cave where you're like, where do I have all this energy?
Yes.
I was just at a client's house recently who is also a menstruating person, and during their cycle, and when I was leaving, they were like, do you mind just lingering so that I do these 3 things that have been hanging out by my door because I'm going to body double? And I was like, what if you literally waited a week to do that? Because right now is not the time. And they were like, oh yeah. And then a week later, they sent me a picture of them completely rearranging their living room just because they felt like it.
Right.
And
it was the right time.
So anyway, I think honoring your cycle is deep wisdom. And
it's also not trying to fight against reality.
Yeah, it shifts the suffering. Maybe it doesn't relieve it necessarily, but
that's right.
It makes it different.
That's right. Well, how are you coming into this conversation?
I feel good. I am very aware of it just snowed where I live, a lot. And for the first time in a long time, I feel very relieved to see a season happen the way I remember it should, because the climate is heating up and we don't get snow like this. Like it was like very like this is actually kind of late for snow. So I'm just noticing the relief I feel, and I like took the trash out and went on a long walk this morning because I was just enjoying how cold and snowy it is.
Oh,
And I'm an
I like precious.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's taken 30 plus years for me to appreciate cold. Like I want to be on a sandy beach with my blood warming on a rock like I'm a lizard. So it feels profound to like really see the beauty of the cold.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to talk about our inner children. We're going to talk about the idea of an inner child, maybe some arguments against it, arguments for it. Just look at every side of it.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really interesting if maybe we started with you speaking about like when was the first time you even heard about this idea? Or when do you feel like you first met your inner child? Whichever one jumps out at you.
Mm. It's funny, I have such different answers for both of those questions because I was raised by a very like new agey mom. So inner child was something we definitely talked about like very young, but maybe not in the way that I know it once you're no longer a child, you know? So I definitely was introduced to the concept because I have like an angel cards in her purse type of mother. And let's just get that out of the way. You know, that's who I was raised by. Was very much like meditating on surrounding myself with pink protective light when I was like 7. Um, but I was a child, so I don't think I really ever connected with those parts. I also feel very struck as a kid remembering like being like, "Oh my gosh, I don't remember anything from 3 years old and before." Isn't that wild? Because it was like 4 years ago.
Hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, that my stepdaughter does that.
And you know,
Yes.
say more about that. Like she recalls things from infancy.
Well, oh no. Oh, maybe I misheard you, but she'll do this thing sometimes where she's 9 now, and then she'll be like, "It's so weird how I don't remember stuff from like 2 years ago."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Yeah, that is weird." I don't have an answer, but
Well, it's kind of like maybe leading to the question of like, what is your inner child? I think at some point, you no longer live in a world where you're like just concerned with the present moment.
mm,
No, sometimes I really like effort to create a memory. I'm like,
mm,
I want to remember this. So I'm going to remember every detail. And
mm.
that wasn't something I thought about as a kid because you're just like in the world moment to moment. Whereas like as I age, nostalgia creeps in, which makes me think I actually just rewatched Inside Out 2 last night. So I'm sure that's going to come up at some point. But then the first time I like met my inner child as an adult, I think I was in India and very aware of my suffering because there was no other noise. I wasn't like in my regular life.
Were you staying in like a temple or a retreat?
It was like an Ayurvedic homestead.
I see. And you're really out of your normal environment. You're in a different culture or different country.
For like many weeks. It was weeks into this trip I took. And there was a lot of weeping, actually.
Wait, how old were you?
I just turned 25.
I see. Oh.
So I actually only existed in my birthday that year for 4 hours because I left the US. My birthday is December 29th. I left the US on the 28th and I arrived in India on the 30th. And there was a layover in Qatar for 4 hours.
Wait, can we go back to something that I'm absolutely stuck on?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, your mom's raising you talking about the inner child, but you just inserted a brain worm into my head where it's like, how is a kid supposed to be in touch with their inner child when they are a child?
Because I think you are you're actively cultivating the
Who
child.
the inner child will be.
Yeah. And it's kind of, my opinion, this is like opinion alert. My opinion on it is that like it's not meant to be a conscious thing. Not, I don't think you're choosing who you are at 7
Oh,
necessarily.
was your mom trying to help you make a conscious choice?
I don't think so. I think there's a very comfortable depth to say it how I perceive it. Like I don't think I have some skepticism about like how New Agers see the inner child as this like pure, innocent, like all-knowing entity that like drives you.
Mm.
Um,
Right.
and I think
Like, how true is that? Or accurate?
yeah, you're still as a kid, you still have like a dynamic machine that's happening that has needs and throws tantrums and like,
Totally.
and you know, I'm sure this will come up too, but like, uh, when you don't get your needs met as a kid, you learn how to manipulate people.
Mm.
And in some ways, as a culture, like the Americanism of it is like manipulation is bad, even though it's a tool we all use.
Oh, totally.
You know, so yeah, I feel like yeah, there's so much to say.
Oh, do you feel like in the new agey view that you're talking to, there's almost like this thing of somebody, they don't even, maybe you don't realize they're doing this, but they're trying to create a part in themselves that is like totally innocent or something that is like totally pure and doesn't have any of the yucky stuff that kids do, which is fine. It's called being human.
Mm-hmm.
And so does it kind of feel like it's almost like bypassing? It's like, oh, well, there's this thing inside of me that's pure and that's the real me, but it's not willing to look at integrating the other parts of ourselves that exist, which are traits that maybe we don't love to admit that we do, but it's still part of us. I don't know. Am I making any sense?
Oh yeah, no, I would say you're helping me like maybe form a more solid opinion about it in real time also. But yeah, I do think that is how it is. And I think let me take a moment to gather what I'm going to say. When you say like inner child is purity, I think that can exist at the same time as we're having tantrums and we're being manipulative and you're being almost you're rightfully selfish as a kid. You're like learning how to integrate as a community member that like considers other people. There's like a distinct difference to people who had to like share their lives with other children and people who did not have to share their lives with other children growing up.
Oh, like me?
Yeah, I mean like, you know, I think like you, and I don't even mean like siblings.
Oh, I feel you.
But yeah, say more about that. Like, do you feel like there's a difference since you were the only kid in your house, right?
I was the only kid in my house. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I thought maybe you were speaking to just kind of like how being an only child versus having siblings just kind of molds your perception of the world.
I
Which
do
it
think that's
does.
true.
Which it does. I will
Yeah,
attest to that.
and not in like a morally bad way. Where like
No, it's just a different
you're
experience.
an only child, you selfish prick.
Totally.
Now that's not necessarily what I'm saying, but like there's also something to be said for the friends I have who like don't have siblings who like yearn for like brother or sister or sibling.
Oh my God. If I had had a sibling, I probably wouldn't have been psychotic. And I'm not saying that like, oh, I was crazy. Like, I was actually psychotic when I was a teenager because I didn't have anyone to witness what I was going through. If I had a sibling, oh my God. It's so, I have a half sibling for anyone who's listening, but she's 20 years older than me.
Right.
And I love that she exists because I have someone to talk to about how are we going to deal with my dad. And so for me, when I think about being the only child, I mean, I don't want to like spend so much time like, oh, I wish I had a sibling. Then life would have been so much easier. I don't even think like that anymore, but I do think the outcome would have been a little different.
Well, so it's interesting to hear you say that because I am a year and a half old, exactly a year and a half older than my younger brother, who as adults now can with clarity reflect back to me my psychotic episodes as a teenager and how they impacted his upbringing because he was sharing space with another teenager, and our dad passed away when I was 17. And really, if I think about it from my brother's perspective, it was 2 weeks before his 16th birthday. And we have each other to reflect on like that experience and what it was like. And we have very much like, the metaphor of like two twins raised in the same household. They both have the same alcoholic father and you turn out totally different. And my brother and I are like exactly the same and also completely different people.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, like, even after I said that out loud, like, there was another part of my head that was correcting myself where I was like, okay, wait a minute, Hanna. You don't even know what's going on, because there's also plenty of family dynamics where there are siblings and there is a narcissist in the mix. Mm-hmm. And all of the siblings are like the golden children of the narcissist. And then there's like the one scapegoat kid who gets absolutely pummeled. And so even if yes. And so, I'm being like delusional, like it would have been so much better if I had siblings. It's like, there's so many. Oh my God. I was meant to get pummeled by the narcissist either way. So,
yeah, but there's so much to say there, because I've also always been like, what would have been like if I wasn't the older sibling, or if I had a sister instead, or like if we had an additional third kid in the mix, and like, and that one of my biggest qualms in reckoning with all of it is, what if this is exactly the constellation of events and people and circumstances that you're meant to walk through? Yeah. Which is annoying. It is, or can be, and also beautiful, but
yeah. No, I feel you.
But say, Ashton, to you, when was your first like introduction to the concept of an inner child?
Oh,
and what did you mean?
Okay, for context, for the listeners, we both went to Naropa University. So if you know what that is, you're probably chuckling.
Exactly. You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, that makes sense. If you don't know, it's this Buddhist-inspired university in Colorado. Very small school, started by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And it's the sort of school that you go to where you're like, wow, I'm getting a bachelor's degree. And it's so interesting that we're in class right now and somebody's having a meltdown about their inner child, and class has to screech to a halt because we need to do a therapy session for this kid when we're all paying $1,000 a day. And that's my resentment, but...
I remember those moments where I'd be like, I'm paying $110 a minute to be in. Right.
You were these Capricorn queens where like, actually, time is money? Why are you guys go to therapy? Anyway.
And we were older students. Anyway, carry on.
Older students. There's a lot there. But, so I think inner child stuff for me, I think I first, like, it pinged me at Naropa. Because like people would talk about it, like people who were like studying psychology or whatever, like it would like come up, I was aware of it. And then I think like social media is like the harbinger of inner child content for many people. But then I think for me, the inner child is such an interesting concept because it's kind of like how when I talk about God, I say I don't believe in God, I experience God. And the inner child was a really interesting experience for me because I thought it was just an idea until I realized it was an experience. And I'm just speaking for myself. Like, I thought like, oh, that's like, yeah, cool. Like, let's do parts work and like find like our inner child. And then it's like, hello, I have located my inner child. And it's like this intellectual experience. And then in 2021, she came for my fucking throat. And I was like, you're like a real thing? And so that's part of the story. But that, to answer your question, started at Naropa, and then she literally materialized in my experience.
So how do you feel like she came for your throat? Like she'd been ignored for so long that like the tantrum was loud, or like
okay, well, so no, that's funny that you say that. Like, so when I say that she came for my throat, that's almost kind of like me narrativizing it, but like I think the experience came for my throat. And what happened for me, it was in 2021, winter of 2021, like January, February. And it was like 4 or 5 months after my mom got put away in memory care. And you know that whole story. Listeners who don't know the whole story, I was taking care of my mom for like 4 years. She has alcoholic dementia. And then in October of 2020, she got put away in memory care, which literally liberated me because she's under the care of the state and she can't go anywhere. And so she stopped being my responsibility. And so it took like 4 months for my body to chill and be like, I'm not in a state of emergency anymore, after arguably living in a state of emergency for my entire life, but definitely for 4 years straight. And so as I started unclenching, I actually remember, I think the unclenching began because I took like a melatonin bath salt bath. I'm not joking. And it was so relaxing. And I remember like I got out of the bath and I was like in bed and I was like relaxing. And I literally felt my brain clench open like a walnut. And I think that moment, if I look back, that was the moment when something shifted and I felt safe. And then when I started feeling safe, this is the annoying part of the healing process, the things that were not able to be looked at came forward because I was not in a safe enough place psychologically to go there. Mm-hmm. And so the thing that started happening after my walnut brain cracked open is I started crying for like 2 weeks. Because even though I have a very complicated relationship with my mother, I had never grieved watching her die in front of me in slow motion. And talk about inner child stuff. If you want to, the inner child, death of the parent, loss of anything, even to dementia, because dementia is a death.
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuff will just wake you. And so I am on this crying spree where I'm just weeping about my mom for weeks. I'm inconsolable. I'm like, I'm dysfunctional. I had never cried the entire time, not even a tear. And in that time period, I had some moments where I was crying and I was like in bed and I all of a sudden felt I became her. My inner child appeared where I felt like I was her body. It was like almost like a psychedelic experience. It was like I was the size of an 8-year-old. And then I could feel that like somatically, like I am the size of an 8-year-old. And then I could feel how helpless I was. And I could feel how like what the world feels like when you're that little. And I felt really vulnerable and helpless. And I think that she started really coming up because I was contending with the loss of my parent. And there was like this almost like astral cut in my relationship with her where it was like she's like really like kind of like gone now. Even though she's alive. It's a weird thing with dementia. But she came from my throat in the form of this time period of like incessant crying and then having experiences where I feel like I literally feel like I am the size of an 8-year-old and I'm having memories come back. I remember what it was like to be in my bed, which is a very contentious feeling for me, right, given what I've experienced. Right. And then also like, yeah, just like feeling all sorts of stuff and remembering what it was like to be that age. And so for me, I think that when I first met, it became the experience. It was almost kind of like a retrieval of what it was like to be that age. And then I think through that, I started to feel a lot more compassion for myself. And it also really spurred my narcissist awakening, which I had with my mom, where I realized I was like, oh my God, like I was so vulnerable. Like, how could someone treat somebody who feels this little in the way that I was treated? And so anywho, to finish that up, for me, meeting her was shifting from a belief to an experience and then like having this whole feeling of like, oh my God, like she's in there. And I probably need to sit a little bit with more about what that was actually like, but she became very active in me. It was like it wasn't just a part of me, like an intellectual idea. It was like she was there. She was knocking.
Well,
So, do you have any thoughts about anything I just said?
no thoughts, actually, just thanks. I like hearing it like that, because I was with you during that time,
Mm.
and there are certain things. It's just friendship is so interesting because you like share so like I would say you and I really share a lot with each other, but there are certain details that you like don't mention. So I'm liking hearing the like walnut analogy, and also just like I giggle at the melatonin bath because for me, it's almost like I'm like mimicking the womb. Like there's something about hot water
Yeah.
and soaking in it, like making me soup, like the most dense salt. I'm literally just like, that is where I like recalibrate my world. And it's been coming up with my clients so much, like what you're saying about suddenly you're safe. And there's sometimes no real indication that you have shifted into a state of safety.
Yes.
You just become safe. Like your
Yes.
body, the body keeps the friggin' score.
The body becomes safe.
Yeah, your body's like your internal little panel from inside out is like, okay, we're in a safety zone. Interesting, that light just turned on.
Oh yeah.
And then like these thoughts I mean, I even had something that didn't happen when I was a kid, but happened really when I first moved to Colorado, come up recently that I have just not thought about at all. It's because I'm safe enough
Yes.
to address it,
Yes.
and it's so interesting too because you enter these worlds of like
Yes.
psychology and mentorship or spirituality, and I feel like the concept of like, yeah, you're safe now, that's why you're dealing with this stuff. It's just so common.
Yes.
But to your point, the difference of like knowing a thing and experiencing a thing are completely different. So just like in some ways, continuing to stoke environments of safety for ourselves and others, I'm just like, I'm so into that idea. And I feel very committed to that because I think there's actually so much, like the mountain of thoughts that will cascade into an avalanche of what there is to deal with. And 2021 is such a like weird time to do it because were you in community post pandemic? I mean, quote unquote,
No.
post pandemic,
No.
well, kind of dealing with that stuff.
Yeah.
So the intensity of it, sometimes I feel like the company of others and being like held by your friends, your family, like whatever spaces with other people feel good for you, um, it can like turn the intensity down on like the overwhelmingness of experiences like that.
Oh, totally. But also like when I look back on it and I'm honoring everything that has ever happened to me sort of a gal. Maybe I needed that isolation.
Totally. Well, one of the things that you made me think of, it was, you couldn't stop crying for 2 weeks. And we're both also chronically ill girlies. So managing cortisol is like, and like the adrenaline in your body, just like the stress hormones that cause or like add to inflammation, um, is one of like my many tasks of the day, every single day. But I read recently, they're like researching crying. And I'm so curious about like the function of crying because sometimes it can be, for me, feel so overwhelming. But part of that is that when I was a kid, I was the crier of my family. And I've developed a narrative that like people aren't going to take me seriously when I cry. So when I cry, I'm like desperate for it to stop so that I can actually like communicate what's happening for me in a way that people will take seriously. And it's like all the people I've dated who are like, oh, she's crying. That's bad. Like, you're not even listening to me anymore. You're just like focused on me crying. However, this study showed the release of cortisol in tears and that the people who let their tears fall down their cheeks didn't cry for as long because your skin the theory is that your skin reads the signal of tears falling down. It's like a process, like you are literally alchemizing your experience by letting tears fall down your cheeks versus like wiping them before they like ruin your makeup or whatever.
Oh my God, yes. It's like when you're talking to somebody who's like crying and then they immediately start crying. They're like, sorry. Oh, can I get like a tissue or something?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And it's like, what if you just let the tears fall? You might stop crying. And like you have those experiences where you're like in the exact wrong place to cry.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you like literally can't stop. Part of me is like, what if you just like risked it and just like you let the tears like I'm wearing a turtleneck right now, like just let it soak up on in the turtleneck. And that gives me sensory chills. Yeah, it does for me as well. Actually, I've learned to not wear turtlenecks to therapy because I'm driving home, we have like roll away from my neck. But yeah, so it just, you made me think of like the function of crying being cortisol release and regulation.
Uh-huh.
And so when you have this like built up experience, you are finally able, you're safe. So the danger zone is gone. You're alchemizing an experience that's sitting in you. And I've heard from you and confirm this if it's not the case, but or like change it if it's not the case. You haven't had as much chronic pain as you once had.
That's right. It's gotten better for a number of reasons, but yeah.
Exactly. I was going to say for so many reasons, but I wonder sometimes if like these like pinchy, somatic experiences within our body, like pinchy pain, nerve crushing, like really feeling like you can actually breathe.
Yes.
Is because we're really like clenched.
Oh, I literally have anecdotal evidence of that in myself. Like when my chronic pain used to be really bad, I noticed a few times and I thought I was fucking crazy, but like there would be times when I'd be in so much pain, I'd literally be on the floor crawling towards my bed, just trying to like get some fucking relief. And I would just be sobbing and wailing like bloody fucking murder. But then after I cried, I was like, wait a minute. I feel better. Like the pain isn't as intense. But the truth of that, it took a while for me to sink into that.
I'm still like, as I said, I'm still in the zone of learning. Like, okay, I'm crying and it's okay. And the person in front of me who I'm crying in front of is going to take me seriously. And isn't going to make this mean that like, well, first of all, you can make it mean that I'm a crybaby because I am. I literally listen to like things. My final acceptance of me being a crybaby was listening to some like NPR commercial about kids getting grant money to like fund their own podcasts and albums and things. And I was like, what a significant experience to have as a kid. But
yeah, so you fully own the crybaby ness of your being.
I'm on a journey to own it. Yeah. But I think I've claimed it as an identity instead of like it being something that I need to like work on to change. Actually, the more I cry, the less I cry.
Oh man, the more I cry, the less I cry. Oh my God. I didn't learn how to cry until I was 27. And I literally cry. I could probably count on one hand the amount of times I had cried before I was 27. Like, I'm not joking. I was really averse to crying. If you had told me before then, the more you cry, the less you cry, I'd be like, mathematically, that makes no sense because if I start crying, it's going to kill me. And I will never stop. And everything's going to go to shit. And I'm going to have to quit my job because I'm just crying all day. And so it really feels like that's not true. Isn't that interesting? Can you relate with that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. When you say that, it literally makes me think, I mean, to put like my upbringing on blast a little bit, when I would cry and I would try to talk about crying or like why I was crying, I would literally be like, and so my parents had this thing where I sounded like Minnie Mouse and they would tell me I sound like Minnie Mouse. No. And I know that they were really trying to like take what I was saying seriously. But like, I also know now, like having kids in my life, sometimes kids are crying and you're like, oh, honey, like you are giggling a little bit. So, but as a kid, I took it so seriously.
Oh, for sure.
They weren't taking me seriously.
Yes.
So, so the thought of like being able to not cry and like felt like such a strength. And because I cried, I was weak. And like, and I do think there's something to be said for like the survivability of what you think you're going to suffocate from,
Mm.
you know? And if you like open the floodgates, you just like never be able to function. However, I'm also like, I'm a girl who cries at work, is what I just thought. And I hate that so much. Oh my gosh. I just think it's one of the places that, like, if I'm functioning within capitalism, you know, in America,
Well, of course, the Capricorn's not going to want to cry at work.
no. But it's also why I became a grief mentor, because crying at work is completely. And then your clients are like, oh, you're empathizing with me. Thank goodness. You just had to find the career that felt good to cry within. But I say it because it's become an indicator for me of like, when I'm in an environment where it doesn't feel like I can cry, it's probably not the right place for me.
Wisdom.
Yeah.
For you,
That's how like
wisdom.
I need to be like accepted, but because it's actually stirring an uncomfortable experience for me to be there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I've worked in corporate stuff and
yeah. Oh, you couldn't cry there?
oh my gosh, no, I'm pretty sure I like was completely capable of like higher level positions that I wasn't getting because I would cry. And in like one-on-ones during like expressing like deep frustration, it was such a toxic work environment where like, goodness, I hope to hold space for people in the future if I ever have a team.
Yes.
That they can cry. Like, of course.
Yeah,
and there's not simply crying. It's probably for a freaking reason, and we should like talk about that.
Totally.
You know?
Totally.
So, and I think about the culture of men told not to cry. Where's their cortisol regulation?
Bro.
Let the tears fall, boys.
Boys. Right. Oh my God. One of my early, I don't know if you have this experience, like you look back on when you were younger and there were like little pings that you got that were like really moving to you, but you didn't really like do anything about it for like 10 years or something. I don't know.
What's one of your pings?
One of my pings was when I was in Scotland when I was 19 years old and I was exposed to kind of like a crunchy spiritual community for the first time. And we like watched some documentary about like quantum healing or something. And this was in like 2011, by the way. So like nobody was talking about quantum healing. And I was like not in that world at all. I was still in my atheist wake up moments. And somebody said something in the documentary that was like, the tears that fail to fall from the eyes weep through the organs, which is so beautiful and so true and so painful. And I remember that stuck the fuck out to me. And it's always been on my mind ever since. And I still know that, but I have so much conditioning against crying still. I've worked through a lot of it. I'm way different now than I used to be, but still it's like I have a big, deep narrative of like crying is a waste of time.
Yes.
We don't have time for that. You have to work.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I do kind of associate it with, well, if I start crying, the whole day's fucking over. But that's actually not true, and I know it's not true. So it's like I'm still wading my way into the new reality about that thing in my life.
Yeah, as so many of us are. And I also am like noticing as we talk about this, we've been like on crying for however long. 15,
We'll get back to inner child, but this is part of it.
Yeah,
there's a connection.
It makes me think too, like it is. I always have these like big. I just have lists of questions that I don't have answers to, and one of them is definitely like inner. If we're talking about an inner child being this multidimensional thing, right? Where it's not this like, it's not just the new agey, like my pure innocent self, which I also really relate to. Like I talk about this all the time as a peace educator, that the function of innocence can often offer new frames to a conflict that actually get you to the other side of like getting into transformative resolution. But sometimes your inner child isn't innocent.
Right.
And I do think that there's like this big juicy part that is almost the predominant narrative in so many spaces about inner children, which is that you have to let them cry. And I'm almost like, one of the things I thought about when you were talking about your walnut brain experience was that we've neglected our inner child so much that in a way that like mimics the adults in our lives that neglected us. And does that equate that you need to cry? Like, is that like the first initiation into like actually experiencing your inner child is that you cry? I feel curious because my experience of like the first time I met my inner child was also crying.
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely.
Wait, tell the story.
I was at a temple in India in Mahabalipuram, and there was like this statue of the planets and sculpture statue of planets. And the ritual was to pass around them. And I think maybe it was 7 times. I don't totally remember. But I just remember on the third cycle around that, I was with my 12-year-old self. She could not believe that these were the circumstances. She started to see the adults around her like, oh, y'all don't actually know what you're doing. And like, I don't feel like I can talk to you about what's happening for me and like all this stuff. And I would just like, to your point, I was like, I didn't feel like I was my parent. I've had other experiences like that where I like look in the mirror and I can see like the two parents that made me in my face. It's so bizarre. But I could not stop weeping walking around that space. And it was like sudden. Like I just was like, oh, this is the thing we're supposed to do. Cool. And I suddenly was just like struck and like my chest, like my heart ached in a way that felt like I describe it like it's just this like bruised sweater skin that I want to take off so bad because it feels so bad. But that's what I was feeling. I was just feeling so bad. Like nothing in my life felt good at that age.
Oh, wait, let me pause you. So are you saying that like you came into contact with yourself at that age of around like 11, 12, who was going through the realization that she didn't have the role models she needed to like talk to about what it was like to be her? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. I mean, we talk about these like psychedelic experiences. I was fully sober. And
Same.
And like, when I start to talk about that kind of like function, I'm like, I'm me at 25. I'm me at 12. I'm this third other person that's like aware of the 25-year-old and the 12-year-old at the same time. I'm offering 12-year-old me language that she didn't have to describe the experience. Sometimes I'm like, am I making sense of something that wasn't actually real for me at 12? And I'm like putting it on my inner child to make sense of my current experience and feelings, and then sometimes I like don't worry about like peer reviewing my experience. It's just like, that's what's happening. And I can believe the thoughts that are happening to an extent. But it was really like, I had a very striking moment of just like, yeah, how sad and like disappointed I was. And I felt like neglected and let down. And I struggle with this because I know, my dad passed away when I was 17. My mom is still alive. And I've talked to her about so much of this. And it's like, I can tell how badly she didn't want that to be my experience. So then I take on like the guilt of a child that like, oh, my mom doesn't want me to feel like that. So
wait, do you feel that guilt as an adult, or did you feel that? I see.
But also at 12, and for me, my inner child is not off. I experienced 12-year-old me a lot more than like 6-year-old me,
Oh, interesting. Oh, so that's the thing that comes up for you a lot, that age.
Yeah, 12.
For me, it's Jet's age, my stepdaughter, 9, 8, 9.
Really?
Always.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
That's an intense adult experience to have.
Oh yeah, I just fell in love with a man who has a tiny version of me
Yes.
as an offspring. It's really funny.
Yeah, and I am currently in love with someone who has an offspring that's also 9, which is funny. Hannah and I kind of experience life in a way where like one of us starts to have an experience and we're like, oh, that's interesting. And then the other person's like, hey, I'm also having that experience now.
Yeah,
So
mirror lives.
yeah, we're also like a month apart in
Yes.
birth. So
Yes.
it's interesting.
Wait, no, you're not a 2-4. You're a splenic projector.
Yes.
I don't remember what your profile is.
No, I'd have to look it up. That's
You might be the heretic martyr. I can't remember though.
I do think it is. Yeah, we talked about the hair. Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah.
And that is correct.
And oh boy almighty, ain't that the truth?
But I think it's very interesting because my, partner, he's just like, he's so good to his kid. And she experiences a father love that I just never got and always wanted so bad. So, yeah, the life of like stepkid, step parent. I don't know. I'm in like the pseudo step parent zone, I would say. Like you live with.
I live with child.
Yeah. But it's like a journey, and it's very. I feel very grateful for it because it really makes me face my stuff in a way that
I used to not feel grateful for it. I would say 2024 was the year of me really bargaining with God about this. Now I feel grateful for it, but it's because I hit the bottom of the barrel as I always do. And then I changed my fucking attitude.
Well, I'll have to listen back to this episode where I'm like, I'm so grateful for it when we work together potentially someday. Where I'm like, okay, it's a different. I go back to a house where no one needs anything of me.
It changed completely for me when I started living with her. I'm not saying that's going to happen to you. I'm just saying that's what happened to me.
Yep. Yeah. No, I'm sure. I mean, it's all sharing experience with someone like that is different.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, for me with the inner child experience, I would say 2021, I really was having an experience with her, probably lasted like a year. And then for whatever reason, I shoved her back in the basement.
And 2021 was you experiencing 9-year-old Hanna.
Yes, the first time.
Yeah, cool.
And then like she was alive in my experience. And then for whatever reason, I shoved her away again. And I was like, okay, I've had enough. All right, time to go play alone in the basement and be neglected. And then I get together with my partner now. I move in with him and his daughter. And she comes right the fuck back out. She's like, you're not going to ignore me. Yeah, you can't. And if you do, I'm going to kill you. I almost kind of feel like I have this like Michael Keaton, like Beetlejuice. Like sometimes when I think about my inner child, it's kind of like Beetlejuice in my head.
I think of her as, if you haven't seen Helena's post about Circus Freak Barbie.
Circus Freak Barbie.
Circus Freak Barbie is holding a knife to your neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when I think of my inner child, for me, it's feral. It's a feral child. She's feral. She has a knife. How'd she get it? We don't know. And she comes at me.
She's whittled it out of her own bones.
Yeah, she like took her femur and turned it into a weapon. Because she's been stuck in the basement for 30 years and had to figure out her own way. And then she like comes to me and she's like, feral.
Oh yeah,
so July
for 30 years.
No social skills. That's kind of like the energetic feeling of the inner child, of like the way she kind of shows up in my experience. It's like this feral child who's been stuck in a basement for 30 years. But who she actually is, when I think about that, I do think on the note of innocence and compassion, like in the New Age view, actually, the thing that I do want to say is that I think that the reason why there's that view of the innocent inner child is to give yourself compassion.
Exactly.
That's the purpose of it. It's not to be like, she was perfect and she never did anything wrong and everyone who's ever wronged her needs to go to therapy jail. Like, these sorts of things. It's not that. It's like, I feel compassion for her. when I see how vulnerable she was and how innocent she ultimately was, because kids are, they're ideally supposed to be in an environment where they are being protected at some level.
Yes.
There's no such thing as total protection, and total protection doesn't produce anything good, actually.
Well, yes.
But just like a general feeling of protection.
Yeah.
And so when I look back on my inner child, I see how innocent I was, in the sense of kind of like I was just doing my best in the circumstance that I was in. But I feel compassion because of that innocence.
Mm-hmm.
It feels more like integrated to me. I don't know. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And like when I say, the function of innocence when we're working in like conflict resolution is that compassion is a tool, and being able to understand the side that you really don't want to understand. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I also think about, those commercials of like a kid smoking a cigarette and like a kid drinking beer and like all like, and then they're like, put down the cigarette. They're kind of like saying like your inner child deserves better. And it's like a commercial for like quitting smoking or like not doing drugs or whatever. And so I've always been fascinated by the frame of like when kids do things that adults do literally leisurely, smoking cigarettes, drinking copious amounts of alcohol, like, all these different things. It's bad. Like we know it so clearly, like you should not be doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, and I've been thinking about this with kids and the internet and cell phones.
Ooh, yeah.
And
still cigarettes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And when a kid is like, like just strapped on into that screen and just like sucking the life force from them.
Oh yeah. Oh, they get sucked.
So I think it's a mutual, they get sucked in. Yes. The life force is gone. They're like just absolutely absorbing from like a fire hose, just sensory stimulation of all kinds.
Yes.
And that's bad. But cubicle work where you're staring at a screen for 12 hours or you're in like a windowless room under fluorescent lights for 12 hours, that's just a function of being an adult. Like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
So I do think just like the frame of children and compassion and how it's so easy to see how things could be different when you're looking at how we could better, like we got to save the children. You got to like make this world a better place for future generations. And it's like, one of the things I think about with that is like, okay, we could treat adults like as like all of us are every age we've ever been. And if the person who is making you really upset and who maybe even like has no concept of their inner child or is actively resistant, like thinks it's just a bunch of woo-woo crap, is pissing you off, they probably haven't been exposed to the same information as you. And if they're only 1 year old in their journey of being in relationship with all of their parts, and you're expecting them to be in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
Absolutely.
It's kind of a big ask.
Yeah.
So I really like the framework of compassion toward innocence. And that like, even as adults, maybe you're expected to know more, but you don't. How do you recognize?
Right. It's like you should know better, but what about the times that you literally just don't?
Yeah.
And then you get crucified.
Yeah.
What do we
and
care?
And you get crucified. How do you deal with being crucified like that? And then also maybe see a function of where you could grow. And then the other side is, how do you not crucify people?
Yes.
And actually help them see and get them to age 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
In that experience.
Yes. Yes.
Which is challenging.
Really challenging.
Yeah. I can be really bad at that part and not crucifying myself or others.
Oh, totally. It's baked in. I mean, we have like a psychological conditioning of domination. Yeah. Whether or not we want to admit it. Just from the conditions of how our culture was created. And not even just like American culture, just like ever since the fucking agricultural revolution 10,000 years ago. We started worshiping war gods
Uh,
that are interested in domination and acquisition. And then that gets baked into our minds, and we have to debake that.
yeah. Oh, you make me think too, like, I think that's the generational, this is a big generalization, but like the generational function of parenting from the people who were our parents. When you say like you suddenly were your mom, you were the size of an 8-year-old,
Mm.
I'm like, my dad definitely suffered from dominating parenthood his as a child, yet mimicked it entirely as his strategy. And yet, like, it probably took me until I was in my mid-20s to see, like, oh, that was what you experienced, and that really sucks.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I actually, if
like the way you were acting was because you've been through so much pain too, and you didn't know it. Yeah.
right. And I think one of my biggest frustrations with my father's experience is like he had all the tools.
Oh,
It's like I think he did know it, you know.
he couldn't take the next step.
And you can't, choose something else. But like so many of us, myself included, with some things, like I just can't seem to choose something else.
Yeah.
Even though I have all of these tools and all of this
Yes.
education and all of this support and like
Yes.
friends that are my family and like family that really love me and like, and I can't seem to choose something else. So I think it's once I noticed that I was also doing that, I was like, oh yeah, like my dad was just a person, also suffered.
Mm-hmm.
And then raised kids, like arguably when he didn't want to or wasn't ready.
Totally. Conditions. Those were some conditions.
So, and it's like someone who's to your point is like, you know, the culture of dominance isn't working.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, could that be applied in your little 3-bedroom home with your 2 children, maybe, and your wife? You know, so there's compassion if I'm just a person.
Shitty thing about dominance is that it works.
Oh, does it?
It works temporarily. That's what I mean to say.
Yeah.
Like the shitty thing about it is that it actually does something.
Yeah.
But it's not like, I would not say it's the best path to take.
Yeah, or like the long-term impact is hard.
Yeah, the long-term impact is destructive.
Yeah. Or you like can't even take a melatonin bath in peace without your brain being cracked open and then there's like decades of shit to deal with.
Yes.
So, but if it can, is inner child work the antidote to dominance? I don't know.
I don't know. It's a good question. I feel like the antidote to dominance is fully owning and acknowledging that you have a propensity towards wanting to dominate things. So the first step is stop pretending that you're better than that. I think a lot of people, especially people who kind of make like justice their entire personality, won't even own that part of themselves. Because they're like, I've made trying to make the better world a better place my entire life. So I don't have any dominant qualities. But anytime you ever think anyone needs to be living the way that you are dominating them.
Do you think dominance is something we learn?
Yeah, I think it's just baked in. It's like so just part of the way people interact. And I think that dominance can be really subtle in the way that I'm talking about it right now, where it's like you are dominating somebody when you have decided how they should be living and what they should be doing. That's a very subtle form of dominance.
Totally. It's funny that you say this because I'm realizing all of these child metaphors I use in my work and my life. And one of them is like when you're playing with that kid at the playground who once they start to lose, they start changing the rules.
Oh, yeah, my daughter does that.
I mean, like, it's such a, like, it's almost like, you know, I'm not like a developmental expert, but it's almost like that's what you do when you grow up is like you learn that you can just change the rules when you don't like the circumstances that are happening.
Yes.
You know, and I've called like certain presidential candidates the selfish kid in the sandbox that's like, you can't play with me. That's my toy. Like, but we do that to each other all the time. I'm just using like a metaphoric example of like what it is to be a kid. Because again, it's so easy to identify. Oh, that's bad. We don't want people to be like that.
Yeah.
Then why are you making everyone need to be like you? And how people like the justice as your entire personality. The way that we talk to other people is so important to their ears being turned on to listen instead of fatiguing them.
That's right.
And like,
or putting them in their threat center just with the way that you're talking.
Yes. And like, and usually we need to learn things 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 times.
Yes. Vertical learning.
You want someone to listen to you thoroughly, completely, with utter belief the first time while you're yelling and while you've also called them like a dumbass idiot who like doesn't know anything when they are 0 years old to the information that you are presenting to them.
Yes. And like human psychology 101, humans don't like feeling judged.
Right. Shame.
Oh my God. When you hit somebody with the judgment button, it puts people in their primal, like, oh, I'm going to be abandoned by the tribe part of the brain. Nobody likes that feeling.
No. It's almost like you need to be safe to address certain things.
It's almost like you need to be safe to address things. Isn't that interesting?
Walnut brain can't be accessed when you're feeling like the tribe is going to abandon you and you don't know if you're ever going to be able to eat again.
That's right. Isn't that interesting? Well, I think on the topic of like domination and bringing things back to the kid's face.
Yeah.
When you think about the kid in the playground who changes the rules when they're about to lose, it's interesting to kind of think about why they're doing that. And I think the reason why the kid does that is because they haven't learned this, the emotional skills of being able to sit with disappointment, sit with feeling bad. Like they don't, like kids have to learn that. Like you're not born with those capacities. We're modeled that and we're taught that usually like in our 30s, but you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, I think the kid on the playground who changes the rules just to get their way is doing that from an arguably innocent place of them not knowing how to deal with the feelings of disappointment, being let down, losing, feeling bad.
Yeah.
And so I think that we live in a culture that's starved for the skills to be able to sit with bad feeling. I mean, the entire culture is set up. If you were an alien species and you were looking at America, just to give an example, the alien species would be like, oh, these people prioritize feeling good. They prioritize feeling good. They want fast food. They want entertaining television, football, fireworks are going off. You want to feel good. You've had a good weekend when everything went your way. You know, and so it's like we obviously prioritize that. And so there's just like an absence of the capacity to be with disappointment.
Yes.
And people spend their entire life avoiding that. And then they start dominating. There's a connection here because they need to feel good.
Yes.
By any means necessary. And so, anywho.
Yeah. And rightness is literally a part of Americanism. Yeah, the right to things, being right, like it's all just like losing is hard. I when you were like, learn this, I was like, I'm still kind of trying to figure that out myself.
Oh no, just load it. Oh, I catch myself in that all the time.
Yeah. And but to your point, like I really do think, feeling good. I'm even like, a friend of mine was reaching out to me today that they're in this really beautiful, like dynamic, that's like a new love interest that's also got like a very determined expiration date. Like this person is like leaving this geographic location soon. And it's like, okay, I could just OD on feeling good. But I've also learned how to keep myself safe is not to just offer myself over to this other person every single moment of every day for the next few weeks. and then go through this like intense withdrawal while it's snowing out and we don't really see the sun where I'm at, like in Colorado.
No, sorry. Yeah, we have sun privilege here.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for acknowledging your sun privilege.
I've acknowledged my sun privilege.
And yeah, I just think it's a very real thing that when you become an adult, I have to tell myself, because there's no parent that's like, please eat all of your vegetables. You can't have 3 scoops of ice cream. You actually do need to get more than 6 hours of sleep a night. Like, even if you don't want to, and what you're doing is really fun or interesting.
Totally.
And not neglecting yourself like other people neglected you.
Right.
Which sometimes means you don't always feel good.
Right.
Because you have to like get up and do that thing you don't want to do and really.
Monica. I'm just thinking about younger iterations of myself that were so unconsciously trying to feel good all the time.
Yes.
Because I felt really entitled to somebody coming to take care of me. Yeah, I know. I was like, because my needs were so not met, I'm now going to have getting my needs met be my unconscious priority in everything that I'm doing. And I can only feel good, and I need people to come and take care of me. I've had many relationships where the person was actively taking care of me.
Yeah. I actually think that we should just end here because I can't keep going with this conversation.
Well, actually, okay, wait. I was gonna ask, like, what do you think the connection is between like the presence of the inner child or inner child work and in relationships? Like how that comes up like in romantic relationships?
Do we have another hour?
Yeah, we do, technically. Maybe half an hour.
Maybe yeah, I genuinely, this is maybe hard to say. So if you don't want to listen to this, you don't have to. You can just listen and let it go. I didn't want to hear about the other. But I want to say it in the way that's like, if you're not this, then you shouldn't be doing that. But I'm going to say it this way instead. It would greatly benefit all of us to be in relationship with every age we've ever been that we can remember while we're in relationships with other people. And that could literally be friendships, family, workers. I think the function of being in relationship with every age you've ever been also maybe gives you compassion that everyone else is also every age they've been. It could maybe offer you not to take things so personally because everyone else is sorting through their stuff just like you are. It could also give you information that like, this is something that happens for me. When my partner is in dad mode, he's in dad mode, and that is the right place
for him to be.
And I will have to take care of myself during those times. It's not that he doesn't want to. It's not that he's not available even. It's that if I am honoring children being cared for in the way that maybe I wasn't entirely, his presence with his daughter for her every need is his priority. And I actually really like that about him. Do I sometimes burst into tears like a whiny little baby bitch? Because I'm not getting my needs met by the specific person who I want to meet my needs because
that moment, because all of a sudden you're the center of the universe?
Yes, I do. Crybaby bitch comes out and is like, absolutely not. Why don't you pay attention to me? I have to grieve this like relationship that I'm in that obviously isn't the right. And I'm like, this is literally the most beautiful, satisfying relationship I've ever been in.
Yep.
And I have to make that experience not my partner's problem.
Yes.
Because that's a surefire way to get the exact opposite outcome that I want. which is I want you to be with him and I want him to meet me in my needs and I want to meet him in his needs is the other.
Exactly. It's a two-way fucking street.
Two-way street. And when there's a kid involved, there's a third street.
There's a third street.
And if they're co-parenting, there's a fourth street.
Oh my God.
And suddenly you're in this web of relating and you walking into those experiences not in relationship with all these parts of yourself that are talking.
Yeah.
Is just unwise.
Yep.
If you like chaos,
yeah,
and you want to just experiment with whatever the fuck could happen,
yes,
I say go for it.
Go off, but be honest with yourself if you're doing that.
Huh? Yeah, and be honest with what's going to happen after, which is there's going to be many pieces for you to pick up.
Yep.
That are potentially going to validate the exact narrative you don't want to be true.
Yep.
Within your life.
Yep. When I was in relationships where I really felt entitled to people taking care of me, it was my inner child running my life because I was trying to get what I didn't get from the person that I love.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting how we do that. We can do that in any relationship, work, friends, whatever, but it's just so much more potent in the romantic.
Yeah.
It's the attachment relationship.
Yeah.
It's like you get like attachment theory attached, and they become your parent.
I mean, I'm going to say this out loud. I get jealous of a 9-year-old whose dad prioritizes her.
I have had the exact same experience. I know.
Which she deserves. It's like so silly. Totally. And I didn't mean to choose a partner who's also exactly like my dad. Yeah, I never had to do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But continuously, even when a relationship ends, the next person I find is like, yep, it's just a different, feels good. He like plays guitar. He's into music. He's kind of weird. Like I like all of that. And one of the things I need, like outside of relationships that are going to make my relationships so fucking yummy, is I need to learn how to take care of myself.
100%.
Like
what a disempowered position to be in, where you think that the other person needs to make you feel better.
What media do you consume growing up that says you should empower yourself to take care of yourself because that's how you're going to be in relationship with other people? Usually that kind of independence is like, well, I can't trust other people. They suck. They're never going to meet my needs. It's a dog-eat-dog world.
I'm a lone wolf now.
Gotta pull myself up by my bootstraps.
Black and white reality. It's you're either completely enmeshed with your perfect Prince Charming or princess or everything in between charming, or you're like, everyone sucks and I'm out here alone. I got my Wednesday that I see every week. Those are the only two options.
Situationship.
Yeah, like in the cultural consciousness, those are the two options.
Yeah.
We're dreaming up many options probably.
Yeah.
Where people are modeled ownership of themselves, self-care. Such a buzzword, but you know what I mean? Like,
no, totally. Actually, you make me think that if I were to go on a date, this is me. Again, you don't have to listen to this if you don't want to. But for me, if I were to go on a date and the person I was sitting across from and we're like getting to know each other didn't want to tell me about their childhood, I don't know if I could survive in a relationship like that personally. I'm like, let's dive in. I literally want to know as many things that have happened to you as you are willing to share. Tell me your story.
Yeah.
Let me read the book.
Yeah. You value feeling understood, so you try to understand people.
I deeply value feeling understood. So you just make me think, like, how do you think being, in relationship with your inner child relates to being in other relationships? I don't know if they're separate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think them being separate causes problems. Is that how you feel?
Oh, well, so are you saying like every age that I have ever been is with me now? Is that what you're saying, is like it's not separate because it's just always there?
Ooh, good, juicy. I think sometimes they're not always there, but I do think I think they help inform our current action. Like you said, you put your 9-year-old away for a while.
Yeah, she's shoved back in the cellar.
Right. But the seller is present within.
Oh, the cellar's still there. That's right.
So I would maybe say, yes, I do think they're always present. Are they always speaking and making decisions and like control at the control panel? Maybe not, but it's because I turned them in the cellar.
That's right.
So even if they're not present, they're already developing other narratives about.
Oh, that's right.
So maybe yes to answer your question.
Yeah, okay, so it's an analogy that's been in my head a lot recently. I've been writing about it a lot. I've been talking about it a lot. Giving things a seat at the table.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And so I almost kind of hear you saying, like, all of these parts are present with me now. They all have a seat at the table.
Yes.
But like 7-year-old you maybe was yapping a bit too much for a while. And it's like, honey, we're not doing that right now.
Yes.
So it's like almost like you're at the head of the table, age 32 or 33 almost.
33 on the
and Jesus year, and you're like at the head of the table, and you have some compassion and control over yourself, where you have awareness of who's at the table, and then who's speaking when, and you give other parts of yourself time to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't be chaos, otherwise it's like a sensory nightmare.
Yeah. Then the ADHD really like can't handle the frequency.
It can't hear.
But you say that I had this like meditation that I did, I still do, before I really knew like the name of like parts work.
Right.
And I called it Golden Throne, Monica, because I grew up on King Arthur's Round Table.
That's right.
And any type of story about that was possible. And so when you say like 33-year-old Monica's at the helm of the table, or almost 33, that is actually not who's at the head of my table.
Oh.
Because I think there's this other being that is that is every age I ever will be. And that's why I call quote unquote Golden Throne Monica. And there's all this like paraphernalia. I'll say my identifiers. Like there's a skateboard hanging, there's like an easel for painting, there's like tons of books like around the throne. And she's the one who's like reviewing the paperwork that 7-year-old Monica filed to be able to talk again. And she's the one that's like, yeah, 32-year-old you does feel like there's not enough time and that you've wasted a ton of time.
Right.
All this stuff.
And it's like really sad that you can't play with your friend today. But
yes. And like, oh, honey, of course you're upset. Like, just cry. That's okay.
Right.
Whereas 32-year-old me is like, I'm such a crybaby bitch. I'm always out like this. Yeah. But anyway, I've also interrupted your answer. Oh, you think that inner child's relationship with yourself is crucial for other relationships?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, it's almost kind of crazy. It's like when you're unconscious of the way that past iterations are running your life.
Yeah.
That's such a natural place to be in, of like feeling like a total victim of like everything that you're experiencing, everything your partner is doing, like all these sorts of things. And I feel like you can shift in and out of the victim position a lot easier when you realize like, oh, like I'm freaking out right now because there's this past version of myself that's really seeking retribution for something.
Yeah.
And I can have awareness of that, own that, be with that. But then I feel in myself, I'm moving towards, I love the word maturity. I'm moving towards actualization and becoming an elder and being fearless and open-hearted. And if I let that past iteration of myself obsess over retribution, I'm never going to be able to become the person I want to be. Just speaking for myself. And so I think that you're really driving blind through life when you have zero awareness of all of these different iterations of self. You're just blind.
Yes.
And then when you start to see, it's like it's a lot of light and it might hurt your eyes, but your eyes will adjust and you'll feel much more in control of your life because you're not being manipulated by the past.
Yeah. You literally make me think, because I was just driving in the snow and it was really sunny out for like whatever 1 hour of sunlight that we get in Western New York. It's blinding. You literally can't see. It's dangerous. The roads are icy and there are other cars on the road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a great metaphor.
That one just came out.
Love it.
Just came out naturally. Just came out.
Golden Throne Hanna grabbed the mic and was like, hey.
Golden Throne Hanna. I love the way you put that. That flushes out my seat at the table analogy so well.
Yeah.
I feel like if there's the golden throne at the table, like the current iteration of self in this present moment is like right next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're like the jester right next to the queen or something.
Oh, the jester is actually a perfect way for all of us to see ourselves, I think. Because, oh my gosh, I'm not only like a Capricorn sun, but I'm a Capricorn stellium, so much earth. Seriousness is something I need to like guzzle antidotes to on a regular basis. And taking myself so seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's when I'm freaking out, is when I'm in that space. When I'm a jester and I'm like, oh, there's play here. You know, when I'm telling people I work with the Golden Throne meditation, I'll even say like, it's not just like your 12-year-old, your 9-year-old, your 7-year-old are there. It's also like horny Monica.
Oh.
You know, bookish Monica. It's like really like these different like identities that I have, or like people that are really speaking loudly. And sometimes part of that meditation is really like, while you're at the table,
Yeah.
who is dying to talk?
Yeah.
Like who's literally like, there are nail marks on the table where we so hard to
And you're like shaking the whole table.
right. And for you in the melatonin bath, 9-year-old Hanna was like, for the love of God, this cell is killing me.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Also, that's a wonderful analogy of like, what parts of you actually should be in that cell for you to function in a way that you like.
Totally.
You know,
Totally.
not in a way that feels good.
Totally.
But in a way that like you're proud of and other people like being around. Like the community is forming. It's an important community. You know, there's like a sound nature to it.
Right. Yeah, I feel like being able to know which parts of self should be in the cell isn't like punishment or turning away from yourself. Having discernment about which parts are going to help you to do the things that you want to do in the world is just kind of like part of maturity to me.
Yeah. We're talking like Norwegian type of jail, like rehabilitation.
Yes. Stop it. It's like on an island with a boat that you can get in and leave whenever you want.
Yeah. There's food. There's like people.
HBO.
Yeah. Your vibrator, your favorite vibrator.
Yeah, you get your favorite vibrator at Norwegian inner child jail.
Yes.
That's weird. Anyway, let's move on.
Rehabilitating adult versions of you, okay?
That's okay. All right. Don't soundbite me. Yeah, but I mean, I feel like there comes a point where we need to evolve out of the seriousness of the inner child work. And I think it's like a normal thing to be in where it feels so fucking serious to like give her attention, give them attention, like so serious. And it's true, it is serious because self-intimacy is fucking serious. You will never get the life that you want if you don't have intimacy with yourself, period. And so it is a serious task, but I think that there's a lot of people that stay in that serious phase of like, oh, it's so important that I do like whatever she wants to do, or like, oh, it's like so like you're in almost kind of like the therapy hell realm of like only ever focusing on how serious it is. And I think there comes a time when you have to have some jester energy around it.
Yes.
And that's kind of like moving out of it, where it's like you can kind of laugh. at
Yes.
yourself. I feel like when I'm really in a good place of self-integration and self-love, I have my inner narrative is so easy and like useful and like joyful and like almost like funny.
Yeah.
Like yesterday I went to Walgreens and I left my keys in the Walgreens
Oh.
to my car, and then like my car is like perpetually unlocked because I don't want to pay. Okay, that's a whole other story. But that's a whole other story. But I left my keys in Walgreens, and I think a past version of me would be like, Hannah, what the fuck? Like, oh, you just want your car to get stolen or something? Like, like I'll have like this really angry inner voice. But whenever I do something that is honestly kind of like a dumbass thing in all objective reality, like I'm just like, Hannah, that was silly of you.
Yes. Golden
I'm
Throne.
just like, no, that was silly. Or like I do something like I can't find my keys in the house or something, which is a daily struggle. And instead of like doing this whole thing in my head where it's like, oh God, why do I not have my shit together? Like, oh my God, like, Hannah, you're such a fucking mess. You just need to clean up your fucking act. And then like when I finally find my keys, I'm like, oh, Hannah, that's so funny that you went on that trip all around the house 10 times. It's like, it's like I feel like I would love for the inner child exploration to lead to a self relationship as an adult where you just kind of naturally are always giving yourself compassion
Yes.
and just like seeing yourself as like this perpetual clown who's just always bumbling around and learning. And I would see that as a beneficial outcome of all the inner child work.
Totally. Yeah. I think again, like as someone who like tends to like lean, I would say I used to lean toward taking myself very seriously. I think play is like very present in my life these days, but it's because it's taken the realization that like play and fun, and for all the like justice is my personality people out there, play and fun are also functions of liberation and justice. And I don't think that it means, it's interesting that play and fun oftentimes is understood as like, and that means we're ignoring all this other shit.
Yes.
I really think lightheartedness is almost like the fountain of youth. It's, there's like all these metaphors I could come up with for why we're also jealous of children is they get to play, they get to explore, they get to experiment and be bad at things, and we don't like make it that they're bad. It's just that they're trying stuff out. Like even in your 50s you can still try things out. And like I started doing pottery a couple years ago, and it's a beautiful antidote to me taking myself too seriously. Because sometimes no matter what I try, things go really, really wrong. And it's like you have to be a little detached and laugh at like, oh my gosh, there's clay in my hair. I can't believe I just spent the last 8 weeks with like every single piece has air bubbles in it, which means I can't do anything with it. And like,
because it'll explode.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I do think there's like this playfulness, but as you're talking like, oh, I'm just a clown, haha. I have 2 things. One is I've been going out to dinner and seeing these beautiful children in like red rain boots and tutus. And I think about how if a 35, 55, 75-year-old person dressed exactly like that, we would call them insane. And yet there's people like, what is that one woman? Is her name Iris? She's like a fashion icon with the giant glasses, and she wears like costume jewelry.
Yeah.
We call her an icon.
Right.
But it's because she's famous. But your neighborhood person who's at the grocery store dressed like a 3-year-old, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Even though they're an adult who's just dressed.
Yeah. There's something unsettling.
They're a clown, which is bad.
Yeah.
When really I'm actually quite intrigued by people like that, because there's so much play and there's so much like, they know what everyone who's bought the same 500 Patagonia, down vests think of them.
Yes, that's Colorado costume that we're speaking of. Is it like that in Rochester? But
Oh
yeah.
yeah, we maybe not as much, but it's still the same. In Rochester, there's much more like of the Italian garb. The giant
Oh, I
like
got you.
silver crosses.
I got
There you
you.
go. So, I there's that, and then the other side of it is this part too of like when someone who's an adult is acting like a clown.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're they need to shape up. Can't you just grow up?
Mm.
Hmm. And I think there's a balance. I'm not saying like everyone who's in the world of play 90% of the time shouldn't really
Yes.
like move the needle
Yes.
in a more balanced direction.
Yes.
But I think really like the consistent thing we're talking about is like compassion and
Yes.
capacity for like other people living in a way
Yes.
that isn't our way,
Yes.
while also working toward like I, I struggle with the like just live and let live, because sometimes the way people live is actively causing harm on a generational community level,
100%.
like to the ether of the globe that we live
Yes.
on.
Yes.
So
True.
I want to say that there are limits to that statement. And also, can I have compassion for the person who's causing destruction?
Yes.
Can I be kind when people least deserve it?
Right.
Can I learn something from the clown even when they bother me?
Yes.
Can I still make sure that they eat? So I have all these things to say about that, and that like adult summer camp should probably be a thing.
100%. I have this quote that I make memes about a lot that's like, if you cut yourself off from your most painful place,
Mm,
you cut yourself off from your most sublime place. But you could say like 10 other things for that. Like, if you cut yourself off from your most clowny place,
mm,
wherever you cut yourself off anywhere, you're
yeah.
cutting off the capacity for like the full spectrum.
Yes. And then you make a shiv with your femur, and which is not something we want.
Right. Yeah. And so it's not about like play is a threat to solving problems in the world.
Yeah.
As how could you play if there's so much bad stuff happening? If you can only be sad due to the existence of sadness in our world, which will always be there, it's like you're literally like limiting your experience of your own life.
Yes. Yes.
So it's like,
And if you are only happy, because I'm
that's right.
hashtag triggered by that because I have a very positive mother who
Right.
sometimes I'm like, can't you just like experience sadness of the world?
Space.
However, the function sometimes is like some people can't go there, to your point, because the floodgates will
Mm-hmm.
open and they will not survive.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who can't go there still have value.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the ecosystem of all of our personalities and shit
Yep.
that actually make thriving communities instead of homogenous, gray, everyone's exactly like the next person.
How boring.
It's like suffering. Like the air will choke there. Nothing is actually there's
It's
no
so boring.
yeah.
It's so boring.
So
Yeah, like you don't go to the movies to watch a story about people where everything is just fine for them.
no. And you don't relate to people like that.
No.
I've dated people who've never experienced suffering.
Hmm.
To some extent, they were amazing. And then when it came time to like be with what's hard,
Hmm.
touching into it isn't possible.
Mm,
And
mm,
that
mm.
doesn't mean their way is bad.
Yeah,
It
totally. I
just
feel
doesn't
you.
work for me.
I told you, I feel you. I've gone on dates or temporarily dated people who haven't been through the same qualities of bad
Mm-hmm.
that I have experienced. And it's really interesting because sometimes people like that can really teach you about like joy and they can be really good co-regulators because they
Yes.
don't have like all this fucking shit going on and that can be a very healing process. But I think that like in the most actualized relationships, we feel four things. We feel safe, seen, soothed, and supported slash challenged. The last two are kind of like a twofer. And I find in myself, like, I don't think I could ever be with somebody who has not experienced certain flavors of suffering like I have. because I wouldn't feel seen by them.
Mm.
But that doesn't mean that like that person doesn't deserve love. They just need to find somebody who they feel seen by and who feels seen by them.
Yes.
It's like I feel really seen by people who have tasted the same kind of suffering as me.
Yes.
And so I tend to want to partner with people more longer term that are on that page with me because it's literally a human emotional need to feel seen.
Mm-hmm. You make me wonder the question of like, are we in touch with our suffering if we are not in touch with our inner child?
It's a good question.
Yeah. Is it a requirement? I don't know.
I don't know. There's so many ways.
Yeah.
There's so many ways.
And
I mean,
play.
people were getting in touch with their suffering before we had the language of inner child. You know?
Absolutely. So I guess I would be curious to have someone listen to this entire podcast and be like, listen, ladies, you're wrong.
Yeah, I would love that. Please write us.
Yes. I'm like,
Please write us.
humourshiv@gmail.com.
No, but here's the thing. Okay, no, but here's the thing. I would love that person because that person would probably speak to something that I already think is true, that all of these ideas, inner child attachment theory, that's another really good one. Love languages. It's just kind of like these pieces of language that were given to give context to things that are kind of like incommunicable. But like you in order to really grow, especially in the realm of like attachment theory, you have to let go of your identity as anxious preoccupied.
Yes.
What, are you going to stay there forever?
Yeah. I think that's about diagnoses.
You
know, over identifying with your diagnosis.
But having the diagnosis is really helpful.
It absolutely provides context and information and like the framework of treatment and what medicine to take. And yeah, but
getting diagnosed with Crohn's disease was so helpful.
Yes. Hashimoto's for me. Like it matters. And I think part of life's initiation is that the pendulum is always swinging in one direction or the other. And if you're like Hanna and I, and you find out a new thing about yourself, and then you devour every piece of information that you can find on that thing, then 2-3 years later, you're like, yes, I did devour every piece of information. And now here's where I'm at with it. And it's usually a different place.
Yes.
And
it doesn't mean that thing that you were devouring wasn't valuable.
Right.
I think there's just kind of like rungs in self-actualization, like rungs of a ladder.
Yes.
And there's not like a singular ladder that everybody climbs, but I think that for whatever reason, we have this like ladder in our mind. And some information that we need at lower rungs of the ladder that is so fucking helpful and transformative. But then like as the years go by, if you're somebody who's actually interested in growth, there's a requirement. You have to be interested in growth for this to actually make sense. But if you're interested in growth, you look back and you're like, wow, that information really isn't relevant anymore. I'm actually in a different place and I'm almost like beyond that. It doesn't mean that I'm belittling that. It's just my past iteration really needed that information.
Oh my gosh.
But now I'm moving into something more complex.
Yes. I love looking back at things I've said and did and like really believed and being like, oh my gosh, I was so off. You know, and like, thank goodness, because literally the experience of being wrong, which is another thing I don't think we have a culture for.
Yes.
Easing being wrong.
Yes.
Allowing other people to be wrong and then be in a better place with their information 3-5 years from now.
Oh, baby.
And loving them the whole time.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. That's hard. That's hard stuff right there. But being wrong was really important. And like hyperfixating was really important. And like all these things that are just part of the journey.
Yeah. Like I even look at a lot of the stuff that I was learning in my narcissist awakening. And I really needed some tools during that period of time. But now sometimes it was so liberating to kind of have language for my mom's behavior. But then sometimes I look back on some of that material and I'm like, I don't even know if I fully agree with this.
Yeah.
But it's because I'm not like in the process of cauterizing a live wound anymore. It's like I'm in like a higher level of thinking that I wasn't able to operate in because I was actively nursing a wound. You know?
Absolutely. It makes me, I think a lot of the things we have said even today, but like in general that are said are always like generalizations, you know? And you have, I've started watching Grey's Anatomy for the first time in my entire life. And it's interesting. I'm sorry if I'm insulting anyone who like absolutely loves that show and that's your comfort show, but I'm like, maybe I'll make it 3 episodes in and I'll have to put it down. But I think about, you know, what the medical system are taught or is taught as generalizations, but you have to leave room for these other times where it's like 1 in a million chance that the other thing is true, you know? And I think oftentimes we live and breathe by the generalization and changing. To your point, you have to be committed to growth and interested in doing that. So an ethos of allowing yourself to be different or even a value of difference makes a huge difference.
The value of the difference makes all the difference.
Just put that one alongside crying more means you cry less.
Yeah. Crying more means you cry less. Valuing difference, it makes all the difference. We'll have our bumper sticker line coming out. 2025.
2025. I'm just imagining an illustration of you in a cell with one leg. And one leg and a walnut.
Oh my god. Okay, wait. Okay, so we need to wrap this up, but can I share an analogy that came up for me when I was working with a client a few months ago?
Of course, please.
We're talking about inner child stuff, and this person is actually a dog groomer, and there's like a thing in like the shelter world where it's like there's like 3-3-3. And so when you get a shelter animal, it takes 3 days for them to feel like even remotely safe in the home. 3 weeks for this, 3 months for that. Yeah. And we were talking about inner child stuff, and I was like, you need to 3-3-3 your inner child. Because like if she's been a feral child with a weapon in the basement of your mind for 25, 30 years, you can't expect her to feel comfortable with you immediately.
Yes.
Those are other inner child experiences that I've had. I've done some hypnotherapy where I was doing inner child stuff, and I would meet my inner child maybe around the age that you're talking about, like 11, 12, and she was very disinterested in me. She like was like, who are you? She's like, what? Like, who are you? So it's like sometimes you have to 3-3-3 parts of the self.
Yes. I have learned to trust
shelter dog.
I am a shelter dog most of it. My Minnie Mouse self is a shelter dog. But you made me think like I have learned to trust Golden Throne Monica and have decisions because I like how I act and I like how I think when she's driving the bus.
Yes.
You know, sometimes I like how 12-year-old me acts and thinks.
Yes.
Sometimes what 12-year-old me is saying is simply information.
Yes.
And like I have a dear friend right now who's actually like rehabbing a shelter dog who hates dog beds, but they have bought 11 dog beds to figure that out. And that's kind of like the process of like becoming in right relationship with yourself is building trust. I mean, we could do a whole different talk about what it is to be in relationship with other people in a way that feels good for you.
Oh,
because the amount of times that I was like, I mean, we already talked about this, like, you need to take care of me. Because I wasn't in right relationship with myself.
100%.
So I expected other people to do it. Or even just show me how.
Right. Oh, totally. Be my teacher.
Yeah. But I didn't know that that's what I was doing. I was just being a whiny baby bitch.
Right.
Minnie Mouse shelter dog.
Yes. Yes.
So.
Minnie Mouse shelter dog. Monica story.
Sorry, I guess I shouldn't laugh like that. I should laugh like, oh my God.
Well, we need to part ways. This has been a really fun exploration of the inner child. I hope something that we said was of benefit to whoever is listening. Do you have any final sentence or something just to wrap this up before I stop recording?
That this was lovely and fun, and I hope anyone who's listening decides to be better to themselves and other people.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you. Nice to chat.
Yeah. It's nice to chat. Love you. We'll come back next time with some sort of monumental thing to talk about, okay?
Excellent. Love you too. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye. All right. That's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening. The information for the guest that I brought on today is down in the description wherever you're listening to this podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, you can see what I'm all about on my website, hannawilliams.com. That's HANNA Williams.com. Or you can catch me on Instagram at GracePilled, Grace Pilled. And I post videos and memes. That is a place where I am definitely the most active. And if you feel really inspired to dive deeper into my work, I especially recommend my Patreon, which is my massive library of everything I've ever taught over the years. And so I'll see you there, or you'll just keep listening to the podcast. Do whatever you want. You have free will as always. Thank you for being here. Be sure to check out my Patreon, which is my massive library of talks and courses that I've given over the years. And if not, just stay tuned for more episodes, and I look forward to sharing more with you. See you next time.